theme music. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Your boy, Coach Vic. Little excerpt of music from. I don't think you'll guess where it's from. I'll tell you at the end. It's from a very unlikely source, at least unlikely to most people. But to me, this is what I listen to music like that often when I'm getting the flow. Anyways, today we're going to talk about: do you know the difference between a good investment property and just some crappy lump of dirt somewhere? So before I begin, whether you're listening to this live or you're listening to the replay, let me know if you can hear me. Put a comment below if you can hear me. You can see me okay. If you think it's not blurry or anything like that. But yeah, otherwise I'm gonna jump right in. So before I give you the meat, let me give you a story that helped inspire this. So I want you to picture this. I was still new to the whole land investing thing, and back then when I was brand new, I was doing all of my deals in Nevada, which at the time was a good state, but nowadays it's oversaturated with a lot of newbie investors, which is not ideal for you, and I'll explain that later. But there I was doing stuff, and I'm basically buying small desert lots in towns I've never heard of that most people haven't heard of. And when I'm actually trying to advertise these lots, I didn't really know much about marketing at the time. I didn't know how to really move property or even buy properties that will actually move itself. So I would basically do what everybody else did. I would just put my lots on Craigslist. And since I was in a northeastern part of Nevada, I was away from the two biggest Craigslist sites in the area, which was Reno and Vegas. So I was still advertising the Reno Craigslist and the Vegas Craigslist. I would tell people, hey, the property's here in Eureka County, Nevada. It's a 2 hour drive from Reno, a 6 hour drive from Vegas, whatever, whatever. And cool. Obviously, that didn't get a lot of interest because people, when you're looking at a local Craigslist, you want the properties near you. Every now and then somebody who see the low price would be kind of tempted and they're like, well, where exactly is it and this and that. And as I tried to explain to them, like, yeah, it's in Eureka County. You gotta, this is how you get there. And they're like, oh yeah, that's too far. I'm like, yeah, that's understandable. But one day I was talking to a prospect and he was actually saying like, hey, do you have any land in Pahrump? I'm like, Pahrump? I'm like, no, but maybe I can find some for you. So that was maybe the second person I've heard talk about the town of Pahrump. And for those of you who don't know, Pahrump is about 60 miles west of Las Vegas. It's basically a meth town. So there's a ton of subdivided lots out there in the desert. And when I was buying them at the time, actually before I started buying them, it was actually a pretty good area to work. Now, back then I didn't know that. I just like, oh, okay, it's another area. I know how to get the data I wanted from the county. So it wouldn't be no problem to go to a different county to do the same thing. Because just like most states, Nevada's back end for how they organize all of their just their property information, it's all the same no matter what county you're in. It's just a different county, a different logo. So it's very easy for me to navigate and get the information I wanted. So lo and behold, I buy a property. This is a tiny ass property, and I pay, I think, about $1,100 for it. And I'm like, all right, great. I'll go back to that prospect. Like, hey, you said you want to land in Pahrump? I got land in Pahrump. Guess what happened next? Crickets. Yeah, guy never came back. I don't know what happened to him. He was like, yeah, man, I really want some land in Pahrump. I bust my ass to get some land in Pahrump, and then he's gone. All right. Now, here's the things I didn't realize. I just said how small it was, but in Pahrump, right, it's in the middle of the desert. If your land lot is smaller than a certain size, you're not allowed to drill for a well on that property. In fact, that water table has been so jacked up from a lot of people trying to drill wells and all that, that they actually, this happened later on, they actually was like, hey, nobody can drill for wells now unless your land is really, really big. So the size increase of the land kind of grew since then. Now, what else I didn't know is that the price I bought the land for, $1,100, was probably the price I should be selling it for. So I already overpaid because I got a little too excited. And then, as I said, when I was actually ready to sell the lot to the guy who was saying, yeah, man, Pahrump is where it's at, he's nowhere to be found. So now I have this lot that at the time I didn't know how to get rid of. I was like, man, what did I do? How could I be so foolish? Well, these are the mistakes that you learn from, and learn that I did. Now, in reality, I was like, hey, this lot's easy to get. Let me get the lot. The problem with that thinking is easy to get lots and easy to get information is not that desirable in the grand scheme of things. Now, that's just a rule of thumb. It doesn't apply for every lot. But if it's easy for me as a newbie back then to get this information and to acquire such a lot, well, what do you think is going to be easy for other newbies or even more experienced land investors? They're going to be able to do that quicker and easier. So there's a reason why it was still on the market. Part of it could have been just because there's just so much land out there that not one person or a bunch of people can get to it all. But you got to put that into consideration, right? Like how easy it is to get the information, and that kind of shapes, kind of makes a picture, paints a picture for you a little bit to let you know what's going on. But I made a lot of assumptions with that lot, and a lot of those assumptions ended up biting me ass. Now, the good news is I met my mentor Ken Dinkins from that lot. Like I was trying to sell the lot on eBay, and he sold a ton of lots in that area, and he was like, "Look, man, I'll look, you're making a lot of mistakes. Let me help you do your thing." So some good came from it, but I ended up selling that property for $900. So I lost 200. However, I threw it in as a part of a deal. So overall, I still made money on it. But if I sold that as an individual, it was like for $900. Nobody was buying. It was too little, and it was middle of nowhere. But with that said, here are some rules that you can use to know if you have a good lot from a bad lot. Now that first experience taught me a lot, but at the time I didn't have the mental fortitude to understand the lessons that was being presented to me by buying that lot, rushing in because some random person said you should buy lots here because I would buy it. So some precursors. Number one, if a prospect tells you, "Hey, go buy a lot here," don't listen to that person. I'm not saying to ignore them completely, but in general, make sure you kind of just like, all right, that's one vote for this area. You get enough votes, then it warrants actually looking into it. Hell, if you got enough time on your hands and you're like, I already have a list of a bunch of potential areas I want to invest in, go ahead and add it to the list, right? You're just doing research, but never assume just because somebody says they're going to buy something from you that they will. Now, this is even true with people who actually have paid money to you in the past. Now, obviously, those who paid money, they get a higher. I put more weight into what they say than some random prospect who's never paid me. But people, they say things all the time. They don't really know what they're talking about. They see things, they like things, but they don't really know what they're really, really getting into. So that would be the one thing. Now, I have 4 grand general areas of criteria I like to use and in this system that to help me know if a lot's a good lot. The first one is a big one and it's real simple. Number one, write this down. If you can get a lot cheap enough, it's good. Period. I don't care if there's toxic waste on it. I don't care if there's hookers and prostitutes and meth heads and drug dealers and all that on it. If you can get it cheap enough, it's going to be worth it. I want you to think about all of your land investing as an investment. That's the key word here. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of times we get caught up in what we're paying for a property, or we get caught up in what we think we can buy the property, or excuse me, what we can sell the property for, right? And we're not really thinking about, okay, an investment. Now, I'm not saying don't think about those things, but sometimes we put too much emphasis on that and not the big picture. A good way to think about it, especially for these smaller dollar lots, is I'm taking some money. Maybe let's say I have $100, right? I don't got my wallet with me. And I'm taking my $100 out of my bank account and I'm putting it on the counter, right? The kitchen counter. And I'm gonna go do my work. I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna go to school or whatever you do in a daily, play hoops, whatever. And in a week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, that $100 that I put on the counter out of my bank account is all of a sudden $1,000, $600, $800. Let me know in the comments below. Would you take that deal? Would you take that? Hell, what if you just took that 100 or the 500 and it just turned an extra 2 or 300? So you put that $100 on the counter, and then in a week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, it turned into $800, or excuse me, $300. So you're only making $200 on that 100. Would you take that deal? Or like I had in Florida, I had a lot. I paid $600 for. I got $800 for it. Would you take that deal? I only had the lot for 3 weeks. Would you take that? A lot of times Like, as I said, we get caught up and like, oh man, I need to make this much ROI. I got to make sure I make this much money on it. That's stupid. That's not a good way to think about it because it limits you. It traps you. And it's a number one cause I see a lot of newbies go through. All right. And I'm going to go get into that in a second. But I go through that same thing. I kind of get caught like, oh man, I want to make so much money on it and I didn't. Then I start to get down on myself and I start to feel bad. And for what? From a story I told myself, all from based off assumptions, not from what the market said, not from what reality was, but just lies. I wouldn't call them lies, but just stories I told myself. And because of those stories, I made myself feel bad until I switched the perspective. And I'm like, wait a minute. I had 600 in the bank. I took it out and I inserted it in the bank for 800. How's that a loss? How's that anything bad? It was a good thing. So that's the first thing. You get something cheap enough, it's a good investment. I don't care what's on it. Now, listen, many times people don't get land cheap enough, and because of that, they have a hard time selling it. So going back to my Florida example, if I was going to sell it for the $1,800 or the $2,000 I was trying to get, I think actually no, it's supposed to be more than that. Um, if I was going to do that and I didn't get that, I could have got my property cheaper. But for whatever reason, I didn't understand something about the map, and that's fine. But once I got over myself and I realized like, hey, this property's not worth as much as I thought it was. Since I got it for so cheap, it didn't matter. It does not matter. Now, if I would have paid $1,200, $1,300 for that lot and then tried to sell it for 200 and then himself 800, then that's a problem. So no matter what you're trying to do, if you can get the lot for cheap or for free, it's a good deal. Even if you get a lot for free and you just end up can never sell it, which is if should never be possible. But let's say you can never sell it. What do you lose? Here's a secret that you don't know. Even if you owe taxes on a lot of land, it doesn't go on like your credit score. Only thing that happens is eventually the county will take the land from you and it's no longer yours. That's it. So if you ever buy a lot of property and you can never move it, which I've never seen happen ever, sometimes it takes a while, but I've never seen no one not able to move it, you don't really have a real problem with your credit. You just lose, you just, don't have the land anymore. And that takes a couple years for that to happen. So there you go. You get the lot cheap enough, it's always a good deal, and you always be negotiating down. You always be trying to talk down the price. Never go in there with a high offer, because even if you do plan to negotiate down the offer, when a prospect hears a high offer, it's harder for them to go down unless they hear some really compelling evidence like, hey man, there's a murder that happened there and there's a toxic waste dump and the devil himself lives on that property. Then, and maybe they'll be like, all right, yeah, you know what, I don't want this anymore, I need to cut a deal with you, right? So that's it. If the numbers don't work, just walk away. Now, the second thing, as I said before, listen to the market, not the prospect. Now, as I said before, a prospect will give you an idea of where to look for land, but you don't know if it's good until you do the research. Now, if you saw the escape velocity video that I sent you as you signed up for this group, that is some of the research I'm talking about. But, there's other research that you can do, right? You can use Google, things like that to help you understand what the land is or the area is. That can really help you out. But that will tell you if it's good or not. How do you know? Well, are there major features in the area that can attract people to the property? Are there, like major features would be like, water nearby, as in like a lake, a river, the ocean, etc. Maybe a national park, for hiking and things like that. Sometimes it can be something neat, like remember I was talking about Pahrump a little while ago. They have a really big and famous like gun range there where you get a lot of like firearms training and things like that. And a lot of people, they make whole trips, they make week vacations out of it. Just going there, learning firearms training, playing with all types of guns, shit like that. So things like that can really help you move a property. So that's how you know if it's a good investment. If we're in the middle of nowhere, I'm not saying people wouldn't like that. It's just there's a smaller buyer's pool of people who want property out there. And it's usually people who are familiar with that area. A lot of times when people are looking for land, especially people who are living out of state and are looking to move or have something in a different area for like a getaway, they're only looking at areas they know. So if we stick with the Vegas example or the Nevada example, Vegas would be a destination. Reno's a destination. Nobody knows about Eureka County, Nevada. Nobody knows about, I can't think of the other name. I can't think of the other counties in Nevada. No one knows. No one cares because there's nothing over there. So just because the prospect wants something there, don't mean you look. I don't mean you just get something there. You always look. You always see if it has something major nearby, so other people from out of state or even in state will actually look to. Does it have nice features that you can brag about when you're marketing later? Does it? Is the land going to be easy to sell in the fact that if it's a smaller lot, it's there's no restrictions on it. So you can, if they wanted to, they can put a mobile home or something like that. So that's something that you look into, right? The third thing I want to get into, the third thing, this is the biggest part of this whole presentation. Give yourself a scoring system that you use to help you know if the numbers will work. Now, what does that mean is basically the background is I don't want any emotion in these decisions. So to kind of switch gears a little bit, let's think about what a lot of people do with e-commerce, right? They want to do some fulfillment by Amazon FBA stuff. They want to do drop shipping. They want to do all these other things. And what do most people do? They go with what they know. So if you are really into fitness, you're like, you know what? I'm going to have a fitness product. I'm going to sell some supplements. I'm going to sell this, right? If you're into like makeup, you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to sell like this beauty line. I'm going to do this. I'm like, and they do that because they're into that. And they think because they like it, other people will like it. Well, okay, supplements, beauty products, all those things, they're popular. I get it. But what does the market really say? What happens if you take your emotions out? And the emotions in this case is excitement and passion and whatnot. What happens if you take that out and just like, all right, well, what does the numbers tell me? How will I know if I'm going to get my investment back? This is what this formula is going to do. All right, so you can write this down. So think of it as every property is like that one cool teacher in school where everybody in the first day they say, hey, you know what? Everybody's starting out with an A, and as we go through, you decide if you want to keep that A. If you don't do the work and you don't do certain things, certain points will be knocked off of your score, and it will lower your grade. And then by the end of it, what you have is what you have. Well, I kind of approach property the same way. So everything starts with like 100% or whatever that top value is. And that top value could just be the assessed price divided by 4 or something like that. So first I look, is this property next to some type of road? When they're next to roads, it's easier for people when they're looking to buy from you to go and view the property. The more hurdles you make them go through to see the property, the less likely people will buy. So the first thing I check, is there a road? And then I check the condition of the road. Is it a paved road? If it's a paved road, that's a real big plus. Hell, if you can go on Google Maps and actually do a street view of the property, that's a really big plus because that means it's going to be super simple for people to get to that property. It's also going to be very easy for you to get photos of the property without you having to leave your house or having to pay somebody to go out and take photos, which I've never done. Now, that is the first thing. Now, if they don't have Google Maps or there's no Google Street View on that, okay, that's cool. But is there a road in general? What can I see from Street View, if anything at all? If I can't see anything from Street View, from Satellite View, what can I see? Is the road big or small? Right? You're not going to get a lot of information from just, looking at the satellite view of Google Maps, but it'll give you a lot of information. The next thing, if you don't have that, if there's no road, it makes things tougher. And if there's no road, I'd knock down a couple $100 off the price. The next thing to look into is what are the restrictions of the area. So you either have to have an area it's either going to be no restrictions, which kind of attracts a certain crowd, or it's going to be a really nice area with a nice HOA and there's a lot of amenities. There's no in between. You can't have an area with an HOA and it sucks. Because then now that people are got to worry about what they can and can't do with the property, probably, and maybe paying for a membership due like to a place they don't like, and it's not like a nice area that makes people like kind of that attracts a higher end client. So either the area got to be free and clear where you can do whatever you want. There's no restrictions, or the restrictions are extremely minimal, or if there's restrictions, make sure it's from a nice area. I've actually have a property now that the restrictions aren't much, but it's enough to make people turn away because the area isn't like, hey, we're next to a golf course and we have all these things that you can take advantage of. So either have the area be free and clear and you can do whatever you want with it, doesn't matter. I do very well with those because everybody's asking me, hey, can I put an RV? Can I put a trailer on that? those areas you can. When there's a HOA, most times they won't let you because it does attract a certain type of person, and it brings down property values. So if the property values are already low, then what's the point of protecting it? But that's a different story. Next thing on your list: are you near a large town? So we already talked about, like, people are going to look for land near areas that they know, that they're familiar with, especially if they're from out of state looking at a different state. They're going to look to see, okay, well, what's near this big town that I know? I don't know much about the state of Colorado, but is there anything near Denver? I've been to Denver once. It's nice, so they might do something like that. Is that a strict requirement? No. So I don't. If they're not near a town like that, or just a big attraction, doesn't gotta be a town. It could be a big attraction. I knock a little bit of points off the total score. Next, what is the competition saying about the property? So if you look for other lots for sale in Google, you just say lots for land for sale in whatever area you're looking at. Does a bunch of listings come up, or is it a few? In the listings that come up, what are they trying to sell the property for? Look at their listings, see what benefits and features they're highlighting. Get an idea. Now, if it's a ton of people selling stuff, I stay away, because how am I going to stand out? I want a fast sale. I don't want to sell eventually. I want to sell now. So make sure that there's not a ton of competition. There's got to be enough to show that people are looking for property in that area, but it can't be so much where you're going to be one of many, and the land there's a commodity that people can easily buy for a couple $100 at retail, not even like using our system here. Next, find out if the property is landlocked. So it's kind of similar to being next to a road. Sometimes there's no road, but there's an easement. An easement is just like a legal access, a legal way to get to the property that may not be in a road. You'll see the easements a lot from the county site, but at the same time, that won't necessarily be a real road. Like if you were to look at like Street View again, you might see it's a bunch of bushes blocking the easement. So yeah, technically you can walk through those bushes, but no one's going to want to do that. They're going to feel they're trespassing. And hell, people who might have property next to it, they may not understand where the legal boundaries are. They may feel you're trespassing. So there's no easement that's easy to navigate. Stay away, or knock down a ton of money off the price. And last is, is there power and water, sewage on the lot? If there isn't, most lots, I don't think I've ever had a lot that had any power or water on it, but I do tell that to the person I'm trying to buy it from, just to let them know that this is why I'm lowering my price. So, but if they do have it, you might be able to add some points on there. Now, at the end of the day, you take all the things that it does not have, and you can decide whatever the point value is for each, and then you give yourself or give the property a final score. That final score should correlate to some kind of price that you're comfortable paying because of that score. So let's say I see a property and there's restrictions, it's not near a large town, but it's near, and those are the two big knocks against it, right? If I was willing to pay $700, I see those two dings on the record. Now I'm offering $500 for that. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, let me know in the comments. Whether you're listening to it live or you're watching a replay, let me know if what I'm telling you makes sense. The bottom line is I want to make sure that I take out all emotion. I'm looking at things objectively. And the things that I'm looking for are things I know that will help sell or not sell the property. So the more dings against it, the lower the price I will pay. Going back to our first point, if you get something cheap enough, it's going to be a good deal, right? Certain land properties, they're good. They're a great deal if you can get it for $100. Not a great deal if you have to pay $600 for it. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments. All right. Oh, last thing too, if it's in an HOA or not, how much is the HOA fees, how much are the transfer fees, all those things, because in general, I pay the HOA fees, so the person don't have to pay for that first year. And they also have to, if there's a transfer fee, I would pay to take care of that. But if, that's more money I would take away from the offer price if I have to deal with that later on. Now, you might be asking, what do you do if you have a bad lot already? You bought a lot, you didn't know what you're doing, you're like, holy shit, man, I think I'm stuck with a piece of shit lot. It's all right, don't worry. Number one, remember this, and I want you to repeat this to yourself. All land sales, all of it. I've never had a property that I didn't think that could sell. When I make assumptions about a property because I wouldn't want it, or because maybe 2 or 3 prospects came and went and they didn't buy it because of X, Y, and Z reasons, you can start to panic and start to freak out like, holy shit, what did I do? I bought something nobody wants. Somebody wants it. I don't care who it is. Who could want it? Well, one thing you can look is, did you try selling it to the neighbor? The big one. A lot of times neighbors want to expand their property line, right? And you can give them a nice little deal. It makes it real simple because they know the property, they know the area. They don't got to check things out. They're like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Great. And you make the process easy. Wonderful. Those are very easy sales. You just got to contact them in a way where their guard is down and they're willing to listen to what you have to say. And what else? Oh, you can also do paid ads. Sometimes on Facebook, you have the traditional paid ads. I don't recommend that right away. That's something more advanced. But if you're using the Facebook Marketplace, go ahead and boost a post for $4. It's $4. Come on, you can't even buy a lunch for $4 these days. Boost a post, get a lot more eyeballs on it. Somebody's going to buy it. Lower the price, obviously. Now, hopefully you didn't overpay for this property, so lowering the price, while maybe not to be the most fun thing, you're like, well, even if I lower the price, I'm still going to make a nice ROI on this. Because, again, going back to the first rule, if you get something cheap enough, it's going to be a good deal. You can also put an ad in a newspaper. Yes, the newspaper still exists, especially in these small towns. A lot of people still read their local paper. Putting up a classified ad for your property is actually really cheap these days because everybody's going online. So you put up a classified ad. It works I think they have it up for a week or 2 at a time. And it gives you some really good leads because, it takes a lot for somebody to actually go open a newspaper, see that classified ad, and give you a call. It's different than having something on a Facebook Marketplace where anybody can be like, hey, is this still available? And you're like, yeah, it is. And they don't even see the message you reply to them, let alone them answering the question. So those are good leads that come from that. And since a lot of people aren't doing it because people don't think that newspapers are relevant anymore, in many cases they're not, it's basically low-hanging fruit and you're like the only game in town. So it looks like you're the only one. So you can really do damage by putting stuff in a local newspaper. All right. But yeah, as you know, all problems can be fixed. So all land sales and any issues you have with the property can be fixed. If there's junk on it, you can get rid of the junk. If there's these environmental issues, you can get around that. You can find out what you can do with the property. All right. And the final thing to do when you have a bad lot is learn your lesson. Go through this checklist and make sure you have these things going on that will help you understand what you can do. I actually created a little PDF form for myself that I kind of use just to keep myself keep the stuff front of mind, so I don't get caught up in the art of the negotiation or getting too wrapped up one way or the other whether the lot is good or not. So just make sure you can do that because if you can't keep your wits about you, you're going to make more mistakes than are necessary. Okay, so now you're saying, okay, I got a system. It's pretty easy to follow. You see how I can take the emotion out of things. It's all about just, hey, what do the numbers say? What's going on there? Obviously, I don't have time because I'm already at 28 minutes. And I always try to keep these at 30 minutes or less. And giving you the exact details of everything I do with this. You have the overview. You can probably implement something on your own that feels right for you. But if something like this, if you want to know how I do it, and you don't want to try to figure this out on your own and go through the trials and errors and get the rejection and just go back to the drawing board all the time like I had to do to figure this stuff out, let me know. My system's pretty easy to use. I will actually be sharing this system later on this month. This system, the other system I have available that I do to help make the business a lot easier. I take a lot of risk out of the business when I go through these systems, and I take a lot of the guesswork out as well. So if something like that sounds appealing to you and it's something that you want to do, let me know in the comments below. I will let you know what that is. And also the PDF that I have created for this to help just keep these things front of mind. It doesn't have a lot of details. It's just an overview just to remind myself of the details I have. Let me know. I can start sharing that out if that's something you're looking to do as well. But as I said, I'm looking to do this business with a lot less risk, a lot more turnkey, a lot less thinking on things I don't want to think about, and just more focusing on yes or no. Let me get in that CEO chair. Yes to that deal. No to that deal. Yes to that deal. No to that deal. That's how I like to run my business. I don't want to worry about anything else. All right. Well, it's about 30 minutes exactly. I appreciate you guys for being here. Listen, if you found this valuable, please let other people know about the group. Next week, I'm going to go more into detail about finding different areas and things like that that you can do right now to find areas that you can invest in. I am going to make sure that I keep, bringing the good stuff. So let people know what's going on. And other than that, man, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. It's a new year, new you. Let's actually get some money this year. Let's not have the same problems of 2020 and 2019 be the same problems we have in 2021. You guys got me? All right. Hopefully you guys are doing great. I appreciate your time as always. Peace out. Oh, by the way, this song is from Street Fighter 3, the new generation of the Arranged album. Yeah, I didn't think I listened to game music, but I do. Listen to it all the time. No problem, Juwan. No problem. All right, y'all. I'm out.